Hi, I'm Leanne Ely. I'm a nutritionist, a New York Times best-selling author, and some people even say I'm a life coach. I started the Daily Dish Show to share my story, my truth, and my journey to vibrancy, and to inspire others to do the same. Because it's all about grit, perseverance, and finding a way despite the odds. It's about embracing the whole woman, not just the parts that are easy to love, and feeding her heart, mind, body, and soul. But I found that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It's go time. This is the Daily Dish. We're going to go into the place of talking about problematic thoughts. Now, anyone? Bueller? Anyone have a problem thought in their life? Anyone? I mean, this is something that is part and parcel with the human equation, isn't it? I mean, who doesn't have a problem thought? Who doesn't? We suffer from problematic thoughts. Everybody does. And that's just the hard truth of what it is to be a human being. It's true. Just what it is. And sometimes our problematic thoughts are pretty intense. Sometimes they're detailed. And they run the gamut on how they present themselves. They do. I never really thought about this until, like I said, this book that I'm reading about the mind and everything, the Stephen Hayes book that I just told you about, that is just absolutely intense. This is a book that you need to read. It's called The Liberated Mind. And he has so many things in there, so many pieces of research in there. It's like I said, it is absolutely mind-boggling, and it brings you back here into the 21st century with new research. We want new research because research blows up what our old preconceived ideas are. We need that, especially when they're not working. So this is where a lot of this stuff comes from. So one of the things that we have a tendency to do is we have a playback button in our minds. Anybody? Right? And not only do we play it back almost like the way that they do a football play. If you watch that on TV, I watch it with Mark sometimes, and I watch it, and they take the football and they go in slow-mo and they show, and you see this, and then they're drawing all over, the TV. And if he'd gone there, but he went over here, and you see right down the middle, and they're showing, all of the play-by-play, how it went down, how it was like either a great play or a miserable play, or what they could have done instead, but it's detailed. And they're showing, watch number 25, watch number 18, watch number 11. It's fabulous because we do this to ourselves all the time. We do it. And it's a playback. Like each play is analyzed. Each play is suffered through. You know that. And we suffer through it again and again and again on repeat. We put ourselves through this. Why do we do this, by the way? Why do we do this? We do. It's a fact. We all do this. But other times we're not having the playback thing of the old memory and the whole thing. And it's not a football, replay with the commentators in the background going, you see that? Did you see this? Did you see that? So nutty. But, we do that. But there's other times when it's just full on negativity and even name calling. I did it the other day. I shared it with you when I I think if you had to have been at the workshop for Creating Vibrant 2022, but I shared how I'd done the wash and there was a pen in a pocket, and how my little, my bath mats ended up looking like Dalmatians, because I've got white bath mats with black spots now. Put them through the washer, took, and redid it, and now they're kind of faded, but they're still spotty, and I'm looking at them going, okay, so here's what I can do. I can dump them or whatever. But when I did this, I remember pulling them out and I'm going, oh, Leanne, that's so stupid. Or you're so stupid is what I said. And when I did that, it just thoroughly threw me off, because that's not something that I normally do. I don't normally put myself down. But this is something that our brains will go to if this is something that maybe we grew up with. This is something that maybe was part of are seen, quite honestly. But until we start to manage our mind and say, this is acceptable and this isn't, this kind of stuff will pop up when we do something dumb. And here's the difference. Hold the phone here, right? Okay. You are not dumb, but you're capable of doing dumb things. Hence the pen in the washing machine. That didn't mean that I'm dumb. That doesn't mean that I need, that I need to go back to school and start all over. That doesn't mean that I'm an idiot. It just meant that I let something go and whoops, this thing happened and I have to take responsibility for it. But in our minds, we blow it all up, don't we? We blow that thing right up, right to the moon. And, we go to the place too where we'll say, you know what, you can't do that. Who do you think you are? And that's when all of this whole idea of like, oh, imposter syndrome comes in. Well, sure, it's part of the whole negative spiral that we throw and pile on ourselves. And then there are other times where, and I want to see some pinkies up on this one because I know how this works. There are other times when we are just, impulsive, indulgent children, right? I'm going to eat that pizza, another piece of pizza. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have another one. I might have the whole pizza if I want to. And I'm going to sit on my butt because I deserve it. I worked, I blah, blah. And then the whole weekend goes and how many pounds of Netflix got consumed that day, with the food just kind of going here and just kind of going there and just, well, whatever, and yada, yada, and whatever, Yeah, I'll have some ice cream too. Why not? Yeah, why not? Why don't we just do that? Full on impulsivity, And let me ask you, every single one of you who's ever been impulsive, who's ever just said, I'm just gonna, we act like it's not a big deal, but at the end of I'm just gonna, we're looking at ourselves and going, what have I just done? Where did the weekend go? Why don't I have any of this stuff going on? Sarah wants to know if I've installed cameras in her house. Yeah, I know what that is. I know what this is. Oh, I'm just gonna. And I'm just gonna, I think, should be a trigger for all of us who've done this to say, oh, wait a second. No, you're not just gonna. You're absolutely gonna 100% blow up your life for the next 24, 48 hours. That's it. What? Am I right? It's exactly what it is. And we minimize it with our thoughts and what we're thinking about because we don't want to take on the responsibility of the aftermath. We don't want to look at that and think that it's, it's going to be anything but okay. But we do it on repeat again and again and again, even knowing, as we say, well, I'm just gonna, knowing in the back of our minds that it's going to be a big time poop show and that we don't want it. Right on. That is exactly right, James Clear. Did you see this? We don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems, which is true. And this is why I'm saying that this, well, I'm just gonna, or however it is that you phrase it, I'm just gonna is how I phrase it, should be a trigger into a falling down. Oh, here it goes. Are you ready? You're going to fall down. You're going to completely blow up your week because of you're just tired and it's time to, or whatever. All of the above situations, all of them are the result of our own inner thought work. This is what we're thinking about. This is how we rationalize. This is the miserable, nasty, negative loop that we go down to. And this is, in the back of our minds, our worth comes into play sometimes. And we think if it's not done perfectly, it's not done well at all, and we're just worthless. And we throw out ourselves on repeat, thinking of ourselves as this big. So when we allow our voices in our heads to call the shots, we are allowing for all of this just it's a free fall, a complete free fall. Because, that playback from the football thing, that's not a one-time occurrence. That happens again and again, again and again. And then that negativity, you allow for it instead of, hey, that's enough of that. No, you're not. I went immediately into the bathroom. I looked myself in the mirror and I said, Leanne, you've got this. Leanne, you're smart. Leanne, you're, all the things that I needed to say to get rid of that negativity. When it pops up, it needs to stand out like it is a mouse crawling across your floor. It shouldn't be in here. Get rid of it immediately. And that's where I found myself the other day that I've shared that with you. And same thing with this whole impulsivity. I'm just gonna. It's just a thought work. Negative, just different ways of showing up. And without any constraints, our minds will continue to go back into that place. So Eric Barker says this. He says it's because we give our inner voice the behavioral power of attorney. Sarah, does that sound familiar? A behavioral power of attorney. And we end up saying, why can't I get this done? Or why can't I get that done? Why can't I follow through? Why can't I have what I want? When we've got all these traps set up for us as we go about our day. Oh, here comes the football play, and oh, there's that negative voice again, and there's impulsivity has showed up at my door again. Those kind of things will keep us derailed every single time, because until we get a hold of what our thoughts are, it ain't happening. It's just not happening. And researchers have been studying this forever, and one of the tenets for getting over the procrastination, the rationalization, and the excuses is a super weird exercise. Are you ready for this? I mean, who sits around and thinks about these things, right? But if you think about this, this makes a whole lot of sense. So what you have to do, and I want to see some people. Hey, Jerry, I want to see some people who will pinky up if you will do this. Okay, are you ready? The number one thing that you need to do in order to stop some of the crazy is to walk around your room. Walk around your room, and as you're walking around your room, I want you to say out loud, I can't walk around my room. I can't walk around this room as you're walking around your room. There's a reason for this, and it's going to blow you away. You ready? Here it is. When you start walking around the room and saying, I cannot walk around this room, you're telling yourself and you're noticing that every little thought that comes out of your mind isn't necessarily the truth. We need to hear this, by the way. We need to hear this on repeat. Because when you tell yourself, oh, Leanne, you're so dumb, or you say something, or you're going through the football play, or you're starting feeding the impulsive child again, sitting on the couch, then we need to come back to this and understand that, yes, we can say no to I'm just gonna, because we know where that's going to lead. We can say no to the football play. We can say no to everything else, the way that we show up and the negative thinking. We have the ability to do this, and we've just proven it. When we prove to our minds that we can do something, we can think something and do something different, bam, we blow all of that up. And now those behaviors, those words, those thoughts can become triggers instead of a trigger into doing those things and falling back into that trap. You can say, oh, wait a minute. I know that trick. I know. Time out. You're not going to get a rise out of me. I'm not going to go watch the football play. Sorry. No, I'm checking out. I'm checking out of the negativity. I'm not going to call myself names. Or if I do, I'm going to go immediately to a mirror and correct that. And I'm also not going to go with the impulsive child and indulge her in all this crazy. It just leads to the next wrong thing that I don't want. Jen's right. It is emotional intelligence, but it's emotional intelligence wrapped around our thought life, because our thought life is the thing that's directing it, inner critic. inner voice, inner whatever you want to call it. Now, and tomorrow we'll talk about this more in detail, because I call my amygdala Amy. And sometimes Amy just gives me a bad time, and Amy's the one that needs to get shut down all the time. And I'm finding it helpful. And tomorrow we'll talk about that more in detail, on how we can really deal with our minds in a way that's super powerful and puts us back in control, because otherwise Amy's going to run away with your whole brainstem. I promise you. That's her job. She thinks so anyway. So 2 interesting things happen when we start doing this walk around the room thing. This is called, in the study, it's called decoupling. So it's a reminder that every thought that we think isn't necessarily true, and not every thought needs to be obeyed. Did you get me on that one? Not every thought needs to be obeyed, because that is the thing. We think, because we think it, that we've got to do this. Oh, well, my thought, therefore, come on. You're bigger than that. You're smarter than that. And no, Amy, probably, if you have an Amy too in your head, Amy's had way too much time to take over and to run me down. It's taken me into these negative thought loops. It's just not worth it. So we decouple from that, and we take a look at that. Not every thought needs to be obeyed. Okay? Not every thought needs to be obeyed. Just because you're thinking it doesn't mean it's necessarily true, or that you necessarily need to obey it. Number 2, people who did this uncoupling exercise, this is so fascinating, found themselves 40% more capable of enduring pain. Okay? Now, you know why this is important? You guys are just going to love this. It gets better, and it's important because we understand that we can do hard things. Listen, if we can get 40% more an increase in pain, in enduring pain, then we can take this and understand that we can endure hard things, even when a bad memory comes up. We don't necessarily have to play and do the football thing. Even when something comes up that it's a dumb thing that happened, that we did, doesn't mean that we are dumb. And even when we're getting in this indulgent child thing, we can unplug it at any time. And yes, the unplug might be a little bit painful. Maybe we don't want to, but Amy needs less sugar and a nap for sure. Amy needs to sit down and take a seat. That's what she needs to do. We can do hard things. We can do things. We can decouple. We can decouple this and find ourselves with a pain tolerance that's rocketed up. And then you can think about this too. And this is what I suggest. Actively think about it. When you say no to something and you need to develop that decision muscle, and you say, no, I'm not going to do the Netflix thing. Instead, I'm going to go read a book. I'm going to go take the dog for a walk, or let's go play pickleball, or something that's more positive than that rut that you've created in the couch, right? So listen, this is not to say that we don't 100% acknowledge our bad feelings and our thoughts and our emotions. And as a matter of fact, another study that they did with the PTSD from people who were eyewitnesses for 9/11, they found that the PTSD that was suffered was far worse than people who were determined not to have PTSD. Guess who did better? The ones who just were like full on, going nuts with all of this PTSD, the overwhelm of witnessing such horror, or the ones who said, you know what, I have seen this, but I'm not going to have PTSD, and this is not going to be a part of what my life is. Guess who's fared better? The latter. The latter did better. And it wasn't that they were denying it. They just made a decision that that particular situation was not going to influence the rest of their lives. There's a big, big thing. So there's no easy off switch when it comes to how we feel. We all know that. However, we can accept that those negative little bits, those little things, those are a part of who we are. We just don't give them a vote. Isn't that amazing? Remember, this is kind of how we talked about fear. We talked about the fear fence and what it truly really is, and how it's not the big, massive wall of China that we think it is with armed guards on it. The fear fence is a lot smaller. It's a little rickety. We just need to live with it. It's just part of our existence. The same with negative thoughts. We have negative thoughts, and we also have really great thoughts sometimes too. So what I say is, life is full of pain and joy, and you don't really appreciate a sunshiny day unless you've got a rainy day or 2 or 5, right? When the sun comes, boy, does it come, and boy, does it just change everything. And that's how it is with our thought life as well. We have those times where it's hard, where it's difficult. But man, I promise you, the sun will always come up, especially if you go looking for it. So acceptance of all of this, of just who we are, and how that we have the good and we have the bad and we have the stuff that we're not so necessarily proud of. We're not going to be bouncing Tiggers all the time. There's going to be Eeyore moments in our lives. And we just need to recognize that and accept that and know that we have ways to move from, away from, and beyond that. And that probably that little rain cloud's going to come over our head again at another point. But we still have skills. We still have things that we can do and capabilities to execute upon them. So acceptance allows us to feel and to deal. But we know that these thoughts don't have to be acted on. So when we can walk around the room and say, I can't walk around the room, we've proven it over and over again, because it's this. This is the big takeaway. It's not the content of your thoughts as much as it's the relationship to your thoughts. Think about that. It's not the content of your thoughts as much as it's the relationship through your thoughts. So when you think about this and you think, well, what's happening here is Amy's trying to derail me because this is safe, this is easy, risk-free. I can sit on the couch, I can binge watch whatever. I can eat all the chips and pizza and Cokes and wine and popcorn and whatever else that I want. And it's my day off, and justify all of that. But we can change this. These are not marching orders, right? These are not marching orders. This is just a suggestion from your brain. And we can tap her down and just tell her where to go and where to get off. And that's why I say, and this is one of the things that I have people do that are in my groups, is I have them write down all the things that they can do instead. Because, it's amazing how so often we know what it is that we don't want, and we focus completely on the things that we don't want. We don't focus on the things that we want. Because if we focused on the things that we wanted and things that we wanted to do, we'd be all kinds of creative with that, wouldn't we? Instead of falling down a hole and saying, oh, I'm stuck on help, I've fallen and I can't get up. So we have to change those marching orders. We have to change them just by saying, hey, I know what this is about. And we need to do a couple of things. And the number one thing is to diffuse them. It's to take the fuse right out of it and make it so that they're inoperable. Stephen Hayes says that we need to distance ourselves from our thoughts. We need to look at them, not from them. Isn't that I think that's such a great way. We have to look at what our thoughts are as an observer, a third party, instead of putting ourselves in the mix and, drowning and like doggy paddling and saying, oh my gosh, I'm just stuck here. No, we're not. We're on the shore. We're looking out. I love that. So, instead of getting swept up like they do in a movie, how they do in a movie, and how it feels real, how it feels like those dinosaurs are coming right for your head and they're going to eat you. It's all that CGI and 3D and everything, and it feels really real. And you get scared and you have all this emotion going and you're blah, watching this. But it's CGI and it's not real, and you hand your 3D glasses in and it was a movie and it was dinosaurs and they're extinct. And here we are. And yet that was your experience. That's what it is with negative thoughts. That's what it is with negative thoughts. They aren't necessarily real. They're CGI dinosaurs. So tomorrow we're going to get further into this notion of thoughts and emotion and truly breaking free from these patterns of our thoughts. And we want to help perpetuate patterns that actually serve us and get us out of these negative loops so that we can be the very best that we can be. Women, wise women, living on purpose and for purpose. That's how we get to that place. What do you think of that? I hope you like this. All right? Pinkies up. Peace be with you. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you for joining me today. You can find me on TikTok for daily tips to help support your most vibrant life. And remember, you are the author of your own story. Until next time.